Dr. Rosenberg, a professor of political science at Drexel University, co-author of News Verdicts, The Debates and Presidential Campaigns, among many other things that he has published. He is tweeting at Dr. B. Rosenberg and joins us here. Bill, welcome. Thanks for being on the show today.
Good morning.
All right. So we've got a very busy week ahead with Congress. Congress is scheduled to do, among other things, raise the debt ceiling. They are going to have to come up with some funding for Houston and Texas and beyond. They're also going to have to figure out a budget. They've got a few other things, and the president's making an announcement on DACA. So how are you looking at this?
Well, as we all are returning back from our summer vacation, so is Congress. Congress is going to have a very full plate. They're going to be looking at a number of issues, including Hurricane Harvey, relief funding, DACA, what's going to happen with the border wall, debt ceiling, tax reform, and possibly another repeal and replace effort in terms of health care. What's really remarkable is that since the beginning of the year, Congress has literally passed no major legislation. And now they're going to try and pass it in this rather short session of Congress in the fall. In September, Congress is only going to be meeting 12 days, October 13 days. How are they going to be able to accomplish all this when they really haven't been able to do it before? That's the big question. And the reason why it's going to be so difficult is not only are the issues big, but the differences between members of the House within its own body, members within the Senate, and the differences between the House and Senate on all of these issues.
Well, the sense is, Bill, that there is a little bit more bipartisanship because, let's face it, Texas, nobody wants to turn their back on this, so maybe they can get that done. Is it your sense that they're going to try to tie it in with other things? There was today, evidently, that we got word that the House tomorrow will have a vote on this, and it will be separate. It won't be tied into, say, raising the debt ceiling, although the Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, said earlier this week that they should be tied together. So is there political will to do it by itself and then do other things, or do they need to tie it to stuff that they have to get done?
Well, I think, in the era of Donald Trump and the broad great deal, he's probably going to try to pull many of these things together. It's not unusual that Congress will do this as well. And if we take a look, there is some linkage perhaps to what's going on with Hurricane Harvey because it hit Texas, DACA, which is a border state which has a large number of undocumented children who have then become on a list, the border wall, which would run along Texas. So there could be some confluence of many of these issues trying to appease, for example, the Democrats on some issue with DACA, at the same time trying to put a border wall, at the same time trying to provide funding for Hurricane Harvey.
Once again, Bill Rosenberg, Dr. Bill Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University, is with us here on POTUS today. Okay, so we got all these other things. A continuing resolution is something which, although it's not, the most exciting thing, it is something that Congress can do. I wonder how this plays out. I mean, is this just another example how America views this? I mean, you're good with public perceptions. It's something you watch. Do they look at this as dysfunction, or are they even tuned in yet now that Labor Day is over?
Well, I think a lot of Americans are in a position where they only occasionally focus on politics. It's only the political elite, those that are really involved in politics, that are going to be focusing all the time. People tend to view various political issues as they impact them most directly. So if we take a look, for example, at the upcoming crisis with the debt ceiling, there are some people that have been concerned about this all year long. But now as the date becomes closer and closer, Congress is going to have to try and resolve this. And Congress often does what's called kick the can, kick it down the street a little bit longer, try and figure out a way around it. But at the end of the day, on something like the debt ceiling, the Republicans have been burned several times by getting up so close to the edge or even going over the edge that they don't want to face that again. So there's going to be a push to get some type of resolution, but at the same time to be able to get sort of agreements made between various members of the Congress of other issues so that they can make deals.
So what's at stake here for the president, do you think, Bill? I mean, obviously the president has talked about how he can make great deals, and there's an interesting Peter Baker take in the New York Times today that this is a president who talks about making deals, but so far all we've seen is a declaration and not really any results.
Well, I think what we're seeing right here is that President Trump is trying to make deals, but at the same time doesn't want to necessarily take on the responsibility of failure. So, for example, when we looked at health care reform, he agreed to let Congress do the lead, and then when Congress was unable to pass, particularly in the Senate, the health care repeal, he attacked Senator Mitch McConnell. But presidents have often done issues where they have defaulted to Congress to try and work out the deal. In fact, even President Obama did the same thing with health care reform, where he let Congress play the lead role. In the end of the day, President Trump's going to be judged not by what he defaulted to other people, but rather the accomplishments that he's obtained. Right now, the short list is very short on what he's accomplished, including sort of the Muslim ban 1, Muslim ban 2, the appointment of the Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, some executive orders that, for example, with transgender soldiers that has been announced but hasn't really come into play. And even today we have Attorney General Sessions, who's going to be going out publicly and talking about DACA. Notice it's not the president that's making these statements today. It's the Attorney General.
And so, interestingly enough, if he's giving a little wiggle room to this particular event, in other words, if the Attorney General is doing that today, it does allow for maybe some bipartisanship on working toward DACA, because it sounds like some Republicans as well as Democrats would like to see it stay in place, at least in some form.
Yeah, I think in many ways it is a negotiating strategy. He lays out a rather hard line, and then he has his minions go out and make public statements, which then get manipulated in some way to change what the policy is going to be. And then he's hoping that a deal gets struck that he's going to be comfortable with, that will become law, and then he'll claim credit. I mean, what we're looking at, for example, on something like this is the border wall. And right now, Donald Trump is desperately looking for even just $1 in this new budget to be granted to the border wall project. The reality is that the border always gets money, but the way it's presented to the public, he's going to claim that this is a new initiative, that he's pushed this forward, and now we're making great pride to defend our national integrity along our northern and southern border in particular. So a lot of it is the imagery of what's taking place, not necessarily what the real impact is going to be.
We will see how things play out. Dr. Bill Rosenberg, is always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Well, you have a great day.
You too, Dr. Bill Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University, on some of the challenges of this administration and, of course, the Congress. Now they're back in town. The president's always been here. Well, has been anyway since his vacation ended. Although he was here back and forth during vacation too, wasn't he? Anyway, the House and Senate are back this week with a lot on their plate. Dr. Rosenberg is tweeting at Dr. B. Rosenberg, at Dr. B. Rosenberg.